Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report. Feeling a little bit better. Appreciate all the well wishes to me. Believe me, it goes a long way. Coming up here on today's show, the Raiders, they signed a replacement for Christian Wilkins. I'll tell you a little bit about Zack Carter, what you can expect this week, what you can expect going forward, and what type of player he is since he's been in the league, which I do think is something definitely worth monitoring and talking about. The Raiders did lose a player on their practice squad. Somebody was signed to another team. I'll tell you who that is. And then at the very end of today's show, give you an update on the latest around Davante Adams from Adam Schefter and whether or not Davante ends up getting traded at all. So first here, let's talk about the Raiders defensive tackle that they signed maybe just about an hour ago. His name is Zack Carter. He is a former Miami Hurricane player, former Florida Gator player. I got all these hurricane thoughts with Florida, which hopefully if anybody's down there in that Florida area, seriously, prayers, wishes, it's wicked down there. I saw the videos of Tropicana. I got some family down there myself. If you're in Florida, man, keep us up to date, especially if you watch this show. Anyway, Zack Carter ended up getting signed today to the Raiders roster. If I had to guess how they're going to end up using him, I would anticipate that he's going to be somewhere in this defensive tackle 4, 5, 6-man rotation. The top guys are still going to be John Jenkins. It's still going to be Adam Butler. They're probably going to use Nesta Jade Silvera a little bit more. Lalu's going to be in the mix as well. This is simply a move to really help out build that interior, but also give the depth that this team definitely needs on the interior. Tyree Wilson has stepped up. Maxx Crosby's going to do his thing. But when you lose a player like Wilkins, who, again, isn't going to light up the box score every single time he goes out there and plays, but can really help you out, especially in the running game, that's kind of what Zack Carter's better at. He's not going to be somebody that you want after going out and getting after the quarterback. He's somebody who's going to help big body guy in the interior to really slow down that running game. If you didn't know that the Raiders signed Zack Carter, hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications, because that's what I'm here for. Jugs doesn't get in for probably another hour. I've been sick. I've been trying to stay away from him anyway, but I promise you this, we're going to be rallying tonight on the Raiders Report. I got to wear a freaking Ninja Turtle costume. So tune in. We will be live Thursday Night Football. We usually go live at, I'm going to say, 7 p.m. Eastern time, so make sure you're tuned in. All right, let's talk a little bit more about Zack Carter. If you don't necessarily know, he's 6'4", about 290, 300-pounder. He's played in 37 games, which anytime you can find a player that has, gone out there and at least gotten some reps in. He was cut last week by the Cincinnati Bengals, played in 4 games this season, did get 2 starts, and a lot of times when you see something like that, I think it's good that you're actually able to add a player that's been playing this season. One of the things that I was talking to about Wild One, shout out to Mount Raider Moore's Wild One, was I feel like a lot of times right now you're seeing a lot of these big-name players go down with injuries, which I'm not saying the Christian Wilkins injury is because of this, but I think you've seen it this season across the NFL, the amount of big-name players going down with injuries because those guys don't practice and I think train the way that they're supposed to in May, June, July, and August because they're afraid of getting injured, and all these players just want to, show up on game day and get paid, and they're not necessarily in game shape. They're in phenomenal shape, but being in game shape is a totally different thing. Anyway, this guy is in game shape. He's been playing on a football team. He's been a part of something. He's only been a free agent for, 5 or 6 days now? But he's played 37 games in his career. He's got 16 starts. He started 2 games this season, 9 tackles, no tackles for loss, and a half a sack this season. Throughout his career, though, 55 tackles, a sack, 2 tackles for loss, 4 quarterback hits. To me, though, this is simply just another depth play. If he gets 10 snaps, 12 snaps, then that's okay. Essentially, all you're trying to do is make sure when John Jenkins and Adam Butler are out there and high-impact situations that you're going to be able to get the best out of them. This season, according to PFF, a 44.3 overall grade, a 49.4 defensive grade, a 49.6 pass rush grade. He's played in 71 run defense snaps. He's played in 80 pass rush snaps. Last season, on the Bengals, 51.2 overall PFF grade, 49.1 run defense grade, a 53.9 pass rush grade, and then as a rookie, back in 2022, 32.1 overall grade, run defense grade of 30.1, pass rush 51.6. And I know when I go down and I say a lot of those things, a lot of y'all are probably like, oh, Mitch, why are you even making a video? This guy stinks. The reason why I'm making a video is because I believe in our coaching staff on the defensive side of the football. I still think Antonio Pierce is a smart defensive-minded guy. I know that Patrick Graham is a good defensive coach, and I know that Rob Leonard is one of the best defensive line coaches in the National Football League. So anytime the Raiders bring in a defensive line guy, I'm never going to sit up here and go, that's a dumb move. What I see is a player who was drafted in the 3rd round out of the Florida Gators, a player that when you look at some of the things that some of these coaching staffs and some of these draft analysts have said about him, you could tell that he's got some talent. Just maybe he hasn't been around the best coaching staff, and maybe since he doesn't have good defensive line coaches. I'm not going to sit up here and act like I know the Cincinnati Bengals defensive line coach. I do respect the Bengals starting defensive coordinator. Like, to me, he's one of the best. Lou, I can never pronounce his last name, but he's one of the best in the biz. But to me, I will always bet on our current staff. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to go down to the comment section. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show, which means whatever you think about this player, I want a one-word reaction. You're about to get hit with a YouTube ad break. I want you to scroll on down and give me your one-word reaction to the Raiders going out and signing Zack Carter. My one-word reaction is help. And this Raiders defense needed help. It needed depth. And I think that's what you're going to see out of Carter maybe this upcoming week, especially against the Pittsburgh Steelers team that they're going to try to run the rock, right? Like, they got Justin Fields, or if it's Russell Wilson, doesn't really matter. The Pittsburgh Steelers have kind of had the same mantra year after year after year, maybe minus like 2 or 3 seasons where Ben Roethlisberger was chucking the rock all over the field. They're going to try to run. They're going to try to be physical, and that's essentially what the Raiders are trying to get out of here. According to NFL draft expert Lance Zerloin, he had an NFL comp of Zack Carter as Adrian Claiborne, which I find to be pretty interesting. And this is what he had to say about him. Carter is viewed as a position versatile. Wow. So he's got some versatility. With the ability to play defensive end in odd and even front, his skilled hands and quick feet make him a perfect candidate to move inside in nickel packages as a rusher. Some evaluators like his girth, giggity, and envision him adding weight to become a full-time 3 technique and 1 gapping front. Carter possesses the anchor for the point of attack, but needs to improve his stack and shed technique to make more plays in the run game. He's a skilled throughout rusher, but a fluctuating motor creates inconsistencies on tape. This sum doesn't equal the parts, but he has the size and skill to become a quality starter with splashy interior rush potential. So that's the first time I've ever read that paragraph. And when I've watched Carter play, because again, when I see the Raiders sign somebody, I like to try to go. I'll talk to our guys that, either cover that team, and I talked to our Bengals guy who covered the team, and he said he was better against the run. When you read that, it sounds like they kind of thought that he was going to do a better job being able to go out and get after the quarterback. So again, when you see a player like this who really hasn't quite lived up to the hype, I am willing to bet on our coaching staff on the defensive side of the football to try to get the most out of players here. And that's essentially what I see. Another thing that we're going to talk about here real quick, the Raiders did lose Ben Brown, who was on their practice squad. They lost Ben Brown, and he's now going to be with the New England Patriots. So somebody who, at times I thought did an okay job in the preseason, but he's no longer on our team. Coming up next here on the show, we'll talk about the Davante Adams trade rumors, because I know a lot of y'all are probably wondering what the heck's the latest going on with Tay. I'll tell you what that is in just a moment. But before I do, our show sponsor today is Game Time, and I've been telling all y'all for a long, long time that if you're planning on going to a game, like I was talking to Noah Santana yesterday, and I was like, Noah, bro, you got to go to the Dodgers and Padres game, because Game 5, that's going to be rocking and rolling. So if anybody's like, man, those tickets, they're usually a little bit out of my price tag. Or, if you're trying to go to the Raiders game this week, I saw those tickets, some of those are over $600, and 56% of the fans are going to end up being Pittsburgh Steelers fans. So if you want to try to get that back to being blacked out with Raiders fans, or if you're trying to get a good price, always check out the Game Time picks. But download the Game Time app, create an account, use code ChatSports. It's also back there. For $20 off your first purchase, terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code ChatSports. That's ChatSports. Download the Game Time app. What time is it? It's game time. Now, if you're going to do it, check out the Game Time picks. That's what you got to look at. Sign up today and get $50 instantly, because, sorry, that's a different thing. The lowest price guaranteed. I think Game Time ticket coverage, the sooner the kickoff time is getting ready to get there, you'll see the prices of those tickets slowly go down, because they know that if they put a butt in a seat, that they're going to be able to get more out of that ticket instead of it's just empty seat, then you're not going to make any money off it. So Game Time is the place to go, that I can promise you. Again, that link's down in the comments and in the description of today's show. All right, let's talk about the latest here around Davante Adams, and there really isn't much of an update in terms of his injury. He is dealing with a hamstring injury, at least that's what is being told to us in this whole situation. I was listening to Adam Schefter earlier this morning, and I reached out to a few of my own people, and basically they're really just reiterating everything that we've already heard / what has been heard from Adam Schefter. And Schefter essentially said that he doesn't believe that Davante ends up getting traded this week, which is basically what I said yesterday, simply because as soon as Davante was ruled out with that hamstring injury, he's not going to play this week. So if you're an NFL team, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to trade for Davante, because then you're going to have to pay him that $970,000. Davante essentially per week makes $970,000, and I know when I say that out loud, every time I hear that, I'm like, that's more money I've made in my entire life, and he's making it per week, and he's not even going out there and playing. But I think when we look at the Davante situation, I do think we have to look at it as this has been a little bit of a better situation. Like, I want players that want to play for the Raiders, no doubt about it, right? But I also want to be able to get the most value out of the players that we have if they end up leaving. Right now, you're not going to get the most value out of Tay, where Schefter said last season the New York Jets, they called the Raiders, and they offered the Raiders 2 second-round picks. The Raiders said no to that. This morning, when Schefter was talking about Davante Adams, he said that he does not believe that the Raiders are going to get a second, that he said that it could be a third, it could be a fourth, it could be a fifth and a sixth round pick. Now, I know when you hear that, you're like, Jesus, like Stephon Diggs' value. He kind of went for a second. Mohamed Sanu, you look at him, he went for a second round pick. But then you see trades like Keenan Allen. He went for a fourth. A few years ago, Amari Cooper went for a fifth-round pick. I know the Raiders traded him to the Cowboys for a first, but it's always depending on the situation, and it is a week-by-week league. It's why a lot of times I find it funny when some people are like, Mitch, you said this last week, and now you're saying this week. That's how the NFL works. If you don't think that the NFL changes on a week-to-week basis, I really think that you're underestimating what the NFL is. But even Schefter said that, where this week with all the players or all the teams that ended up losing that were interested in Davante, there were some unlucky things as well, where the Jets fire their head coach, Derek Carr ends up getting injured, and now teams that were originally the top destinations for Tay, now the other teams like the Bills and the Steelers that are still in this equation know, I don't know if he's going to go there, so the price tag gets a little bit lower. If the next week, if the Jets are 2-4, or if the Jets win, maybe the Bills get a little bit more aggressive. This changes by a week-to-week basis. However, though, the 4 teams that are in the mix as it stands right now are the New York Jets, are still the team that is the most interested. The New Orleans Saints are still interested, and even Schefter said, I wouldn't roll out a trade there, even though Derek Carr's got that oblique injury. Then the next thing is the Steelers, and then the Buffalo Bills. Those are the teams right now most interested. And what it's really going to come down to, I think, for the Raiders, if they want to get that second-round pick, Mark Davis is going to have to ante up some cash, right? I don't want them to take anything out of our salary cap. We need that salary cap for next season, and we need it for, quite frankly, this season. And Mark, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do for the greater good of this team, and you move out of Oakland, which I still say is the right move from the dollars and cents side. But if you're going to take this team away from Oakland and you're going to put them in Las Vegas, I think, once in a while you got to show the team that you're not afraid to take some of that money out of your pocket and do this, because if all it takes is Mark Davis to give Davante Adams that $13 million that he's kind of like looking for this season to be able to offset some of those price tags, do it. $13 million for Mark Davis is like me reaching into my pocket right now and handing you guys a $100 bill. Do I really want to do it? No, but people bang on this show all the time. Why? Because it's for the greater good of the nation. And that's what Mark Davis needs to do. Mark Davis needs to reach into his pocket for the greater good of Raider Nation and say, if the way that we're going to get a second-round pick is by me paying that money, then he needs to go out there and do it. That's what an owner does, right? And sometimes that's just what has to happen. Nobody wants to fix their gutters. Nobody wants to fix their plumbing. Nobody wants to go out and do XYZ to fix their house. It's just sometimes you got to do shit like that, man. So to me, if the Raiders want to get a second-round pick, you're probably going to have to eat some of that money. But Adam Schefter did say that a trade this week for Davante is very unlikely, which means it's going to roll over to next week. And next week, Davante is expected to be healthy. So I'll be curious to see what happens around this entire Davante Adams situation. But I do know this. Davante is much happier that Aidan O'Connell is starting. There was some speculation. It was reported 2 or 3 weeks ago that Davante and a bunch of captains said that they wanted to continue to start Gardner Minshew. But I'm a psychopath, and I always look into everything that I possibly can around this football team. And I also know that Davante has spoke very highly of Aidan. I also know that Davante, wanted Aidan to start. in the beginning of the year, and then I don't know if there was some sort of conversation that led to the whole Gardner Minshew thing, but maybe I'm reading into it too much. But like, if you go to Davante Adams' Instagram, he's following Aidan O'Connell. He's not following Gardner Minshew, right? And it's a little itty-bitty thing, but sometimes, like, just because guys are on the same team doesn't always mean that they get along. And I know this, Aidan will try to get Davante the ball a whole bunch. And Gardner, not that he didn't try and not that Luke Getsy didn't try, but when Gardner Minshew's your quarterback, your offense is totally different compared to when Aidan's the quarterback. We still are probably fighting over bad QBs. It is what it is. But I think at this point, if you're the Raiders, you don't want to sell Davante for too low. You want to get the most value out of him, but you also want to make sure that you're putting yourself in the right situation and try to get a dub. Because if you can get a win this week against Pittsburgh, you're back to 3-3. Everyone's happy, all smiles again, and it's not absolute meltdown mode. If you lose and you go to 2-4, I don't know if it's necessarily going to be meltdown mode as much of it's going to be like, all right, that's the way that it is this season. We've been extremely unlucky with injuries, and the quarterback play, our OC hasn't really lived up to it. But I do think what I want to see the most out of the Raiders, out of Aidan O'Connell, and out of all of our players is that they go out there and they play with heart, because they didn't play out there with heart last week against Denver. They didn't play with heart against the Carolina Panthers. When this team plays with heart and they go out there and they play, they're good. And that's just the way the NFL is. There's all these good teams. Anybody can beat anybody on any given week, and I hope the Raiders are able to come away with the dub today. All right, y'all, I got to get out of here. I actually have a meeting here at Chat Sports, but appreciate all y'all tuning in. Again, the Raiders signed Zack Carter. Think of it as a Christian Wilkins replacement, if you will. Davante not expected to get traded according to Adam Schefter, and then the Raiders also lost Ben Brown to the New England Patriots, and he's now on their he was on our practice squad. He's now on their active roster. Appreciate it. Again, tune in tonight, Thursday Night Football. I got to dress up as a flipping Ninja Turtle. I love our Thursday night shows. Quite frankly, it's the most fun that we have all week. We're going to be trying out all these different sodas that Raider fans also sent in to us, so it's going to be a good time. I do feel a million times better. I still might sound terrible. Some of y'all are probably like, Mitch, you sound terrible every day, especially with that mustache. It is what it is, but I will be better. We're going to be banging. We're going to be getting a little bit wild tonight, and I feel like I can do it. So make sure you're tuned in, Thursday Night Football. Let's get it. For more videos here around the Las Vegas Raiders, make sure you click that subscribe button right here. If you want even more content around videos that I've made, don't be afraid. We're pumping out a lot of content here at The Nation. And then even more videos around the silver and black, which you can find up here. We pump out a lot of content. I hope that you guys enjoy it, and I'll see you tonight for Thursday Night Football.